So, welcome back to 2BFT. We are Rav and Harman. Today we will be talking about
how to succeed in a foreign country.
for dummies, because I'm a dummy and I succeeded in the foreign country.
To figure this out, let's take a brief look at history. And funnily enough, guys, I know a guy who's literally done this. So, Harman, can you help us out here?
Top tip number 1. Imagine that you need to travel to the foreign country tomorrow. What is the first thing that you need to teach yourself? You need to put yourself in those shoes. First thing that you need to know about and to overcome is the language barrier. You don't want to be left alone in a country that you've just moved to, not knowing local general phrases, even to say hello or ask them for, let's say you go into a store and you'll ask them for milk and bread, the usual things that you'll need. If you can't ask for that, then you're going to be struggling. You're going to be there pointing at things, or you're going to feel awkward doing that. And confidence is a big issue because it's not your community, it's not your people yet. You don't know where you are. You're discovering everything for the first time. You need to feel confident in one way or the other. The most comfortable way to feel confident is if you know the local language. Because if you can speak the local language in any country, you feel like you're part of that country immediately. Which is why, for example, a lot of Western countries you'll feel normal with. Let's say if, Rav, you had to move to America tomorrow, you wouldn't be scared about moving to America. You'd have some fears regarding where am I going to be, etc., etc. But the language can take you so far. Like, you can speak the language, you can figure your way out. So get yourselves a dictionary, get yourselves on Google, use the resources available to you. You've got Google in your phone. Get on the top phrases that you'll need in the country.
What sort of top phrases would I need?
I think one of the few top phrases that I would say is obviously how to greet someone. It's the most polite thing to do in a country. If you greet them in the local language, people are more likely to be more friendly. They're not going to be as hostile as, obviously, if you speak different languages, things can get lost in communication. People might think of it as a hindrance, like, oh, what is this guy talking about? I don't know. In order to not feel those things, first of all, as I said, know how to say hello. Then figure out how to purchase things in the most basic way possible. So you know how in English we would say, how much is this? Figure that out in the local language, because what's the next thing that you're going to need? Once you've made it to that country, you're going to need to find out how much is the rent. You're going to need to find out how much is the bread and butter from the local store. You need essentially anything you buy there. You're going to have to buy things, right, to live. You're going to have to figure out how much are those things. So just a general phrase to how much are these things. I also know how to ask people how they're doing, just to hold that kind of easy general conversation. And lastly, one of the most basic things that you'll need is direction. You might need to ask someone where to go or how to get there. So I think get some more ammunition in that regards. Get some more phrases to find out what's left and right in their language. How would someone give you directions? What would they say? Top phrases you might need. Because even the road signs sometimes might not be in your native language. They might not be, let's say for us, in English. We'll have to figure out what they'll be in that language as well. So just figure out those key phrases. An example I can give you is when I've literally just recently went over to Amsterdam, and a lot of road signs were in Dutch. Not everything was in English. So I went on Google, I looked up some road signs and made sure I was familiar so that I was not trespassing onto, let's say, the bike paths, because the Dutch love their bikes. In Netherlands, they will roll you over with their bikes before they stop. So just be mindful that you need to figure out where you can step and where you can't step. So that's an example that I can give you there. The next top tip is financial advice. Now, you need to get familiar with the exchange rates and managing your money. To expand on that, exchange rates will cause you a lot of stress, because when you've moved into a new country to begin with, you'll be converting the money from the local currency to your currency back home. And I think a lot of South Asians can relate to this, is when you pay for something in pound and you're like, oh my God, that like bottle of milk was like 100 rupees, and you feel so stressed because you've just spent 100 rupees on a bottle of milk that you can get back home for like 50 rupees, which is like 50p. So I think get over the fear of spending in the local currency if you've moved to the new country, but also be aware of the exchange rate so you're not overpaying for things. You need to be mindful of going into local shops, local vendors, and them overcharging you. So be wary of that. Figure out the exchange rates. Make sure that you're not overpaying for things. Also, figure out your coins and the local currency. You need to know, for example, for the UK, you need to know what the pound coin looks like, what 50p and 20p look like, and what like the notes look like. So the £5 note, £20 note, £50 note. You need to know your notes and your currency, because if you go to a shop, let's say you go to a grocery store and they're like, oh, it's cash only, or my card machine's not working. You bring out a bunch of cash and you just, I've noticed this myself in the UK, where people just put the money down and they say, can you let me know how much this is, and just take the right amount. Now, I'm sure there are a lot of good people in this world. I'm sure the shopkeepers are helpful and they do these things, but you never know when you might come across that one bad person that'll take advantage of that. And now, moving on to a bigger tip, a major one. This is like a huge, big tip. Find yourself a guy named Rav who will basically take you, drive you everywhere, speak the same language as you, be your friend from school. Now, if you if you can't find someone called Rav, look for someone in your community. And who better to talk about being part of a community than Rav himself, the main man? So, Rav, over to you. Why don't you tell the listeners about how great it is to be a part of community as when you're moving into a new country as a foreigner?
They're not the listeners, Harman. They're BFs. Guys, we came up with a new name for the listeners. We didn't want to feel like there's a disconnect between us and you guys, because we say it every episode, we're two normal guys. We live in the UK, you know. We're not millionaires and just yet.
Not yet, yeah.
Just yet. So we're all part of the community as well. So me and Harman decided to name you guys. You guys are our BFs. So for our British friends, that's BF is British friends, and for the Browns, it's our Brown friends. It's even funny, Harman, that 2BFT is like 2BFTception in this podcast, because when we record our episodes, we try and embrace the Brown side, but then also trying to appease the British side as well. Sometimes it's difficult for us, like, are we too brown in this episode? Are we too British? And have we, not looked this over? So it's 2BFTception everywhere. It's just all 2BFT. But in times like this, it is right what you're saying, Harman, to find people in your community. So how do we go about doing that? First of all, it's the easiest transition into living and integrating into the culture of another country, because while you're integrating and having that transitionary period, you'll still be able to embrace elements of your own culture with the people around you. So that's the first thing. The second thing is that everyone in your community, especially if you have people the same age as you, everyone will be going through similar issues. So when there's solutions to those issues, or a large collective of people solve this problem or don't have to deal with this problem anymore, you'll be a part of it. You'll be able to see what the solutions are, and even if you find the solution yourself, then you can spread it with the community to then grow the community even more. So it's a positive feedback system of sorts. And it also helps with the language barrier. What better than to go to another country where you don't really know the language, to have people there who speak the same language as you to help you get by while you're learning that language. It also helps with building a network. If you start from people that you know, people that have the same likes and interests as you, same age, all of the similar things, you'll be able to build a really strong network, and then it will be easier to get things like jobs, because you'll have most of the same skill sets. You'll be applying for the same jobs, same companies. Then it's super easy to make friends, right? You need to make friends in any place you live in, a job you work at, university, school. You need to make friends, right? So that would be the best place to start. It's where I started, at school and uni. I just looked at someone who looks like me and walks like me and talks like me. I thought, yeah, let's make friends with that person, right? Another bonus point, might I add, is that it gives you an entry point into the services of the country. What I mean by that is, say if you come to this country and you buy a house or you rent a house, your boiler breaks down. Who do you go to? You speak to someone that is in that country from a different company who speaks a completely different language. They can charge you whatever. You won't know the problem, or you might know the problem, but because someone's said it to you in a different language, it's confusing, and you won't know if you're getting scammed or not. You could just go to someone in your community, call someone you know, and say, "Who do you know that does this?" Or the chances are, if they don't know someone because it's in the community, they'll know someone that knows someone, or they'll know someone that knows someone that knows someone, right? So that's how you get a nice entry point into getting services. Again, that can build up your network. If you use that guy for plumbing services, he'll know a guy that does kitchens and bathrooms and windows and a mechanic, and you can then build up the community in that way. Guys, it's another example of 2BFTception, because what are we doing? We're trying to build a community, right? We've seen not a problem, but me and Harman have experiences, and we've observed that, you know what, as South Asians, we all experience similar things in the corporate industry, in the corporate world, sorry. And our solution, which is kind of in our nature as South Asians, is to go to the community. Now, we didn't find one, so me and Harman kind of banged our heads together and thought, let's create one. Let's reach out to the community, see who's experiencing the same issues and can maybe offer solutions, or it's relatable, or they can connect, right? So all of these points that I've listed here are points that me and Harman are currently using in our lives, even as successful British citizens who have got through education, who have got jobs. We are still using these same basic principles to deal with and navigate the challenges of the Western world as South Asians. If you guys don't feel like you have a community, reach out to us, use the hashtag 2BFT. This is what we have built this for. It's for people all around the world. Just because we're British does not mean that someone in British Asian living in Canada couldn't relate, or living in America or Europe. We implore you to use the hashtag, speak about your experiences, find people who are going through the same thing or have gone through the same thing. All of us are not that different at all. I'm educated, I'm degree qualified, I'm a westernized South Asian person. That is like millions of other South Asians in the world. It's not anything special. We're all going through similar challenges at this time. This community can then become a time capsule of sorts, to where in 5 years, 10 years from now, Harman and Rav, who have their own experiences and own successes, have shared, what they've done, what they haven't done, what they wish they did, etc., etc., etc. Even with people who will then integrate into westernized communities, who are immigrating right now, who will then go through new challenges that maybe Harman hasn't gone through, maybe I haven't gone through, which in the future people would still need help with. And there will still be people on this podcast who are connecting and still talking about those experiences. This community is going to be timeless.
Just to add on to the points that Rav's brilliantly put together, use your available resources, guys. We are one of your resources that are now available to you. We have taken the leap to go ahead and create this podcast to build this community, not just for South Asians, but for any person that's immigrating to a country and they feel like they have a foot between two worlds. If you go back to our previous episodes, we're constantly reinforcing the fact that we are there for the community. Use the hashtag 2BFT, use it on Twitter, comment down below in the YouTube videos, because you'll never know. Even if you are an immigrant that's settled in already, or if you are deciding to go to a new country to start a new life, your comments will help each other. As a person who's already settled, you'll provide valuable insight and experience to someone that's about to make that decision or that leap. And if you are someone that's making that leap, you'll get rid of some of that anxiety and fear by putting it down in words and relating to the community. So use the available resources, guys. We don't have to reinvent the wheel everywhere we go. I think a lot of people, including myself, have done that in the past with our hobbies or our interests. We try and reinvent the wheel. We'll try and go into something thinking we know how to do it the best way. But there is a lot of experience and knowledge out there already. And also, this helps you to not fall trapped to things like tourist scams.
There's two ways to learn everything, Harman. You can either learn it from yourself, from your own mistakes, or you can learn from someone else's mistakes. And we implore you guys, don't waste your time. In the era of social media, all the mistakes I have made with fitness, I've put on my training page. So you can take a look at my page and think, oh, let's not make the mistakes Rav has made. So then you will transform in a year or 2 years, whereas it took me 9 years because I decided to try and learn everything myself. Save time. Save all the time you can. Look at what other people have done. Look at the mistakes they have made. Look at the things they've done good. Copy what they've done that's brought them success, and don't do what's brought them failures. And you will learn and grow 10 times as fast as opposed to doing it by yourself. However, having said that, there's that saying, Harman, that Rome wasn't built in a day, right? With all things, even if there's opportunity in a country, even if the prospects are very, very, very good, these things will always take time. Integrating into a brand new culture, learning a brand new language, even if you've never lived on your own before, learning those things, they all do take time. So I would strongly urge you guys to be patient. Give yourself time. Don't feel like you're falling behind just because someone's ahead of you. It's taken me 9 years to get to where I am with fitness. It took me 4 years to get my degree from university. It took me another 1 and a bit years to finally settle into a job that I can enjoy and be happy with.
And I'm on the same page as you, Rav. It's taken me 10 years, and even now, to this day, sometimes someone will tell me, hey, did you ever watch this show as a child? And I'll be completely clueless. So I'm still learning a lot of new things about the culture, essentially, itself. But it took me like a year to get used to the accent. It took me a couple years to get used to like the food. And like you said, it took me a few years to get used to all the different jobs I've done and finally find one that I enjoy and I'm happy with. And these things do take time. Nothing worthwhile ever came to someone in a day. Following from that, guys, if you enjoyed this guide on how to succeed in a foreign country for dummies like me, let us know what you guys think. Use the hashtag as we have urged you to do, hashtag 2BFT. Comment down on the YouTube, comment on Spotify, let us know your experiences. Let us know if you found this guide useful, if you would change anything in the guide, if you would add anything from your experiences. This list is not exhaustive in any way, is it, Rav?
No, it's not, Harman. In experience, there's a million things that someone who's knowledgeable could add. Even when we record our podcasts, guys, when we record them, we'll be thinking, oh, we should have talked about that, we should have said that bit. But if we said every single bit that came to our head, this podcast would be like 10 hours long. And I don't think anyone will be listening to that just yet, Harman. We haven't built enough social proof. For all of our loyal BFs out there, bro, we gotta change that. BF sounds like boyfriend.
That's exactly why we chose it, Rav.
Yeah. For all the loyal BFs out there, we have had overwhelming support from the podcast. We've stricken so many conversations with friends and family who would otherwise have probably never spoke about those things, which was the objective of the podcast. So every week we're sparking new conversations, new ideas, talking about new experiences, and we're even learning things about our community that we didn't know before. Every time that I have a conversation with someone about what's going on in the podcast, they will say, oh, I don't agree, and I'll say why. because they had a certain experience that might tell them something different. That is how information gets spread. That is how we learn and improve. And I could say, you know what? You're right. I might change my viewpoint. If you enjoyed the podcast, if you got any value out of it, like, comment, follow, subscribe. Subscribe to our YouTube, follow on Spotify. Use the hashtag 2BFT to share your experiences, thoughts, and ideas. And we'll see you guys in the next one. Take care. 2BFT.
I love calling them BFs, especially loyal BFs, because it just sounds funny because all the women will be like, oh my god, no BF is ever loyal.